we do not know why she's sending him away. It seems really stupid, especially from what happened at the end of the last episode where she tried to go off on her own and nearly died because she was alone.
Within the first few minutes of taking herself by herself.
Why are you doing this, woman? Welcome back to The Watch. Okay, Wheel of Time, Season 2, Episode 2. And as always, I'm joined by my lovely wife, the lady. How are you, my dear?
Well, we're getting through this, so I'm surviving.
We're surviving. This one was boring. I found it quite boring. How about you?
I felt like it was jumping around a lot. You didn't actually get time to appreciate a character or a setting. You just kind of jumped from one to the next, to the next, to the next.
The show feels really lost at the moment. At the beginning of Book 2, there was a very distinct goal. You know what needed to happen. Like, holy crap, the Horn of Valir was stolen, and they make a much greater, like, desperate, that's a bad thing, as well as needing the dagger to save Matt's life, and so there was urgency. I was really trying to go after it. Everyone's just been farting around for 5 months. Rand is just living whatever we find out what he was doing, and he had a goal, but there's no urgency. Everyone's just like doing their thing. And as a result, you're not invested and you don't care and you're not waiting for anything to happen or to be achieved. Usually if there's a strong goal, the audience gets invested and you really want to you feel like a connection where the achievement of the character is your own achievement and you want them to achieve it because you get that type of fulfillment. You're getting nothing of that here because what is the goal? If I was to ask you, what's the goal? What would you...
Well, it seems that none of them really have one. No, loosely, Perrin and Loyal are supposed to be getting the horn, but it's not really even mentioned in this episode.
Yeah, they're just after Paran Fain. They don't really mention that. Paran Fain has the Horn of Valir. The Horn of Valir is in the hands of a dark friend. Like, the implications, if you are unaware of this, if you don't know the books, is sounding the horn means you will summon past heroes. Like, it's an instant army, right? And they will obey whoever blows the horn. And if an evil person blows the horn, they get to control that army. It's really bad. And they haven't even mentioned the chest that is locked. Like, one of the things why Paran Fain never got around to blowing the horn in the book is that he couldn't figure out how to open the chest. It was like this really tough, like, crazy puzzle thing. And he eventually does something kind of weird where he gives it to someone else to get them to open it for him. But he was mainly after the dagger because the dagger was in the chest. So none of that is in the show at the moment. And as a result, it feels lost, meandering, and boring. The only character that has some type of a goal is Perrin. Matt is locked up and we don't know what he wants. He just wants to get out. That's it. Rand is just... We're finally introduced with Rand, and we get some Rand in this episode. And he's just doing his thing. Nynaeve and Egwene, they're just doing their thing in the tower. Moiraine feels particularly lost. Well, we only get to find out towards the end of the episode that her allegiance is with the dragon. But before then, you're not given any idea of what she's actually trying to do. Did you figure that out?
Yeah, she had never really implied that she was on the dragon's side or opposed the dragon, but that she was looking for the dragon.
Yes.
And then she lets him wander off. And now she's like, I'm on the side of the dragon and nobody else is.
Yeah. What was she trying to learn when she was staying at that place with the other two Aes Sedai? We don't know. It's not given to us at all. Like I said, it's lost. No urgency, no purpose. And so it's just boring. Now, there was an action scene that was somewhat interesting. I was hoping that Perrin might actually do something cool. He doesn't really do it. But you get to see the Shienarans do. They get to kill a couple of people. Yeah, there's that. There was one thing I could say I legitimately enjoyed, and that I think the show actually did a half-decent job, and that was Elayne. I think she's, so far, the only character that I think I like. What was your impression of Elayne?
Yeah, I liked her. I think it's easier to come back to her when we get introduced to her because then we can discuss why she's likable.
Okay, we will. Was there any other broad, overarching kind of observations you had for this episode?
Just that partway through, I was trying to figure out if Liandrin Sedai was taking on the role of two characters from the book.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, you can't really tell because if she is, they're conflicting of locations later.
Yes. And motivations. In a big way.
It's getting very confusing as to if this other character is going to come in or if they've combined them or what's really going on. But anyway.
Let's go into... so basically, that's the overview of the episode. And I like... It's both better and worse than the previous one. Like, maybe as we're going through bit by bit, some things really stand out to me as offensively stupid betrayals of characters and stuff like that. But I noticed less of that in this episode. But having said that, this episode felt even more lost and pointless than the previous one. We're finally introduced with Rand, their opening scene, and he's clearly having a nightmare. He's worried about going crazy and killing his friends. And so... yeah, this should be one of the things he's a bit conflicted by at this point in the series. So it wasn't a fake out or anything because you're not fooled by it. Your thought, my dear?
No, it fit and you're like, oh, look, Rand's shown up.
Yep, basically. So Rand wakes up, right? And this I was not expecting. He is already with Selene. And so he's looking out the window, and look who comes to join him. It's a woman with dark hair, and he identifies her as Selene later on. What? What kind of, like... I'm having a reaction as a book fan, because this is, like... Selene becomes a very important character, okay? And Rand just sleeping with her, having a relationship with her... already throws out so much of the plot and progression of this character, right? The way that she wants to manipulate Rand and everything like that. And it's so contrary to the book. And the other thing is, like, it just throws you in. Oh, they're already together. Like, they had a really interesting way of meeting in the books. Like really interesting. And it adds a level of mystery and intrigue and everything. And they've skipped all type of... now they're together. Not only together, they're sleeping together. Like, this feels bonkers to me. Separate to my reaction as a book fan, if I was just watching this, it feels like Rand is just really not... it's like he's given up. Like, wasn't he trying to figure something out, being the Dragon Reborn? This feels like, without knowing any context, is just hooking up with some random chick and trying to settle down.
That's pretty much how it feels, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so she tries to get him to come back to bed. He's like, no, I should go to work. And you're like, okay, so he's been there for a while. He's got a job. And we're somewhere. And so then as it goes, you kind of go, oh, okay, he's gone through the foregate of Kyrian.
Mm-hmm. Really darky. You can barely see anything. Yes. Selene is described as having perfect human beauty. Okay? This is a very characteristic. And the other thing is, this is contrary to... Selene would never stoop so low as living with him in a shack, like a hovel. She's always wearing really fancy clothing with silver and stuff like that. And she's always disappearing because she has her own plans that she's doing. All of that is contradicted by what's being seen here, okay? And so it's just throwing out what you would want to see as a book fan. And if they're wanting to move in that direction in the show... well, you've started really, really poorly, okay? Really bad. So that's that scene. Then we are introduced to what we find out as the Foregate. Rand is already in Kyrian. And there's Kyrian, and out of all the descriptions of Kyrian, I never thought of it as looking Asian. Like, it had a very Renaissance nobility, like, description and feel to it, especially with the outfits that all the Kyrianians would wear and the game of houses and things like that. And so it really doesn't feel like Kyrian at all. Any thoughts, my dear?
Well, the towers and things of Kyrian are supposed to be really old. Like, yes, the Foregate's supposed to be ramshackle and falling to bits and everything, but the the well-to-do area doesn't look that impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be very impressive.
Yeah. So that's what we get for Kai. And there was such a good, there were so many events that led up to him arriving in Cairhien, right? And then there was, that's one
There
of
were
my
so many
favourite
fun
parts of
things
the
that
book
happened
too,
in Cairhien,
exactly.
yes.
In the books, Rand arrives wearing a really fancy coat and everyone thinks that is nobility because he also just starts to carry himself with more authority. And so people are really interested about this new noble who's arrived and they send him invites to come to all these things and he doesn't want to play the game of houses and he accidentally, every single action he makes, accidentally plays the game of houses perfectly to the point of not knowingly manipulating the situation to get invited to basically the king's thing. That's all out of the window. This is just him living in Cairhien. There's no subtext of the Game of Thrones or anything like that. And he is now working at an insane asylum.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems that it's possibly one specifically for men.
Yes.
So potentially ones that have been stilled and are living out their lives mad.
It felt it seemed like, all right, he's going out of his way to either help people who's going crazy and he feels a kinship to them, or he wants to get some information about channeling and stuff, and that's why he's going there. They're replacing, the story of him in Cairhien and everything with this. A really underwhelming, he's working in an old folks' home, try to learn, get connected. And the takeaway of this episode is that he's working towards to get access to Logain. We see Logain at the end of this episode. That's it. That's the big reveal at the end. And they got rid of heaps of fun Cairhien stuff from the books for this. Now, if you were not to judge it against the books, you might be just thinking this is a bit boring, but okay, I can kind of see why he's doing it. But when you compare it to the books, which is the greatest point of comparison, that's what it's based on, the fact that they got rid of such great material for this is just insulting. So we got the intro, and then we're back with Moiraine, and she's really depressed.
They're both looking deflated and depressed, and they move like they're really injured still, which really annoyed me because they've just been healed by Aes Sedai. The only thing they should be feeling is drained and starving.
Yes. Yeah.
Not hurt and limping and, oh.
Well, I'm starting to doubt that people read the books here, so...
They've just picked names and go, let's just go with it.
And healing is going to have an arbitrary effect now based on what they want for the plot. If they want them to be tired after healing, they're going to be tired after healing. They're not going
and if they want them to come back from the dead, they'll do that too.
Exactly. Exactly. They confirmed something in this episode that threw me in the last episode, but I didn't mention, now it's confirmed here, is Perrin's abilities are not like what they are in the book.
No.
His abilities now is that he can see the past in visions. I'm not kidding. His eyes go, and look, this is literally him seeing the past, and he sees a family getting slaughtered. His abilities are heightened senses. He can smell like people's emotions, and which makes him really good at tracking because he can also smell where people have been, and he can see in the dark really well, and he can talk with wolves. This one now, he can literally see the past in visions. Why?
Yeah, where did the visions come from?
And why would they choose to make that change?
They've kind of mixed up things that happen in the books where somebody thought they saw somebody in a window,
Yes.
They thought things had happened, and at one point they get stuck in a loop of slaughters that had happened, but it's completely unrelated to Perrin's abilities.
Yes.
It's weird bubbles happening in the pattern. Bubbles of evil. It's got nothing to do with these glowy guys.
This really frustrates me because at this point in time, I do not see a need for this at all. It feels like it was a change because the people making this, they're arrogant. They're like, we can change, we know what's better, this will work better. Blah, blah, blah. You didn't need to do it. And are they trying to give him some type of, I guess, Huron's abilities? Huron, he's a character that they seem to have just ditched
Yep,
and replaced with Elias. And his ability is that he could smell violence, okay? If there was violence in something, he could smell something foul, and he learned the ability that, if something bad happened, he could tell something bad had happened there, and it also enabled him to track people, because if they were bad, they would have a bad smell around them. he couldn't see the past. That wasn't his ability. And so to say that, they're giving Perrin some of Huron's abilities is bullcrap as well. Instead of like knowing violence of the past, Perrin is literally seeing the violence of the past. So this was frustrating. It's mainly frustrating because I'm a book fan. And if you're not a book fan, you're just thinking, well, he has some type of weird magical ability. It could have been a lot better. There was a template they could have followed, but no. So that was weird. Thanks for that. Back to Rand. Rand is meeting with an old kind of crazy man. And look, in isolation, if I wasn't comparing to the books, this scene does do well to build his character, to make him a little bit more empathetic, because it's showing genuine care for this poor crazy guy. Okay? And so this is actually a positive character trait they're showing from Rand.
In this scene at least.
In this scene at least, yeah. It shows that he's a sword master, and Rand is like, oh, you could teach me some things. And so that's kind of revealing that, he wants to learn a thing or two. He has a run-in with a jerk nurse, like someone else who works here.
One of the other carers.
It's that guy right here. He comes in a bit later, and so because we find out this individual, right, who is tormenting the people in the nursing home. Well, he's in Rand's way. Rand actually wants his position in the job, and so how will Rand get it? Well, we'll find out as we continue on. So here, this is where I'm starting to get thrown a bit by Liandrin, because Liandrin is actually going out of her way, giving Nynaeve attention. It was set up in the previous episode that she wanted access to Nynaeve, and I was thinking maybe that was to manipulate her, to set up a certain event in the book or something like that. But this episode, this episode actually shows Liandrin with actual concern and investment into Nynaeve's progression.
So what I felt was happening, because she shows Nynaeve a healing done by an accepted, and sort of showing her, look, being an accepted is better. You get to learn from the Aes Sedais of the different Arjas, and this is what the Red Arja has to offer her. She knows that she is the most powerful woman alive.
Yes.
She is extremely powerful, and she is going to do all that she can to guide her towards the Red Arja. And so she will try to be kind to her, but she is going to make that girl work for it and get that power and show her what she could do with it.
With the amount that she starts to instruct Nynaeve, it actually starts to feel like they've combined, and my dear, you pointed this out, they're combining Liandrin with Elayne, who is another Red sister, Red Aes Sedai from the book. And Elayne does take active kind of interest in the teaching of the girls, and she has an aggressive type of methodology, you could say, in the education. And if they are combining these two characters, there is a really significant thing that Liandrin does, that if they're combining her arc with Elayne, I do not see how they will have her do that. They would have to give that action to a whole nother character, and then this character, a lot like Liandrin.
And Elayne, that some of their story would combine, some of them would be scattered.
Most of Liandrin's story would have to be given to another character.
Yeah.
And she would have to play out most of Elayne's story arc. And if that's the case, why did you make her Liandrin? You could have made her Elayne from the beginning, and it would have made a lot more sense.
So, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this character. We'll find out in the next few episodes by the looks of it. But, at the moment, she's looking like a combination of them.
And so I'm not liking it. And this scene in particular is supposed to... It feels like this is Nynaeve's first interaction with healing weaves. And it's like, well, no, Nynaeve was aware of healing weaves already, and she was enamored by it and wanted to learn heaps of it. So they're doing that a lot later.
And she's been healing without knowing it for years. And she is an amazing healer. She's already healed a room full of waters and Aes Sedai. And she's very well aware of it. But they're bringing back a girl that had the same breakbone fever thing that Egwene had to try to make her more sympathetic. And, I know that that's deadly, so, this person's a goner. And then just going, look, no, it's simple.
So then we come to Matt still being held captive, not necessarily tortured by... it was implied that they were not treating him well in the previous episode, but now it's just like they're keeping him, and Liandrin is saying, it's just to see if you'll succumb to the influence of the dagger again. And so they're actually that was not necessarily something that Liandrin is in her character, and there's a big thing in this episode that is not within Liandrin's character. In the books, Liandrin did not give a stuff about the girls. She basically despised them, and so again, the fact that she's giving so much attention to the girls, she is not treating matters poorly, and the scene with the man that we'll come to later on really feels like they are. This isn't Liandrin. This is mostly a lighter or a blend, and they're going to give some of the key things that Liandrin does to someone else. But Matt is still locked away.
She gives him a treat of some sweetbread and wanders off, and we go, okay then.
That's it. And we are finally introduced to Elayne. And look, I have to say, I think they did this pretty well. The introduction had good characterization. Elayne comes off as friendly yet naive, clearly from a different... Naive, clearly from a different class of society. And they cast her really well. Finally, like a really good casting where you look at her and you're like, that's got to be Elayne, right? Few and far between in this series. Like, she's such a pivotal character. Why didn't they do this level of care with all the other characters? And shockingly enough, they can make characters come off as actually likable, because she does. And so I like this character. Elayne is easily my favorite character in the show so far, and she wasn't in the show this episode heaps, but she's introduced. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they cast her beautifully. They wrote her beautifully, that she's been used to luxury and...
Because I like it when she goes into Egwene's room and she's like...
Oh, you've just moved in too. They've left rubbish in here.
Yeah. And look, I enjoyed that. And it's funny, both my wife and I, we were like, hang on, why is Elayne moving all this stuff into the novice quarters? I thought they weren't allowed stuff. But then they did follow up on that later in the episode where, no, she isn't allowed all that stuff in her room, and it gets cleared out. So the actual attention to detail and how they handle Elayne, mostly good.
Yep. Mm-hmm. We have one tick for the whole episode.
Yes.
Woohoo! So this is the first time it's mentioned that Nynaeve has a block. All right? And it says that she can't touch the source unless she's angry or afraid. And fear is not a factor in the book. She could be petrified and not touch the source for anything.
It's barely a block at all now. It's pretty easy to get... It's harder to get angry than it is to get afraid. And there's a lot of, there are so many instances where Nynaeve is scared out of a thing and she's helpless because she's not angry enough to channel. And so by adding this in, this basically makes the block nowhere near as detrimental and limiting as it was in the book. But I think they're having... I suspect that this is them realizing, oh crap, there are multiple times she's channeling in season 1, and it doesn't look like she's afraid at all. Specifically when she's facing Machin Chin. Yeah, in Machin Chin, she's not angry. She's scared out of her wits. And I pointed that out, she's clearly not angry enough to channel. And so... did the, people making the show actually pay attention to the criticism feedback? It's like, well, we got to do something because she's not angry. Well, and just now, if she's afraid, she'll be out of channel as well. It's like, I can see what you're doing. It feels like you're just trying to clean up your mess of season 1. And it's not it would have been better if you were just true to the books and be true to her block that she can only channel when she's angry. At least they're trying to fix it up, but still, this makes it far less limiting than what her block should be. When she's afraid now, she'll just be out of channel.
And so it's also mentioned here that there's going to be a vote whether Nynaeve gets to become accepted in the hall. Yes. Because previously it was the decision of the Armelin in the book. And so she just kind of decided and that everybody else had to go with it. But now that she's not the one deciding, they have to vote on it. And... Alana's all packed and ready to go. And Shirem's like, well, you're even going to be here? Mm-hmm. And so we find out that Alana's saying, we need to go help Moiraine.
Yeah. And also, you'd think Siuan would have appeared by now. But nope.
Nothing to do with it.
There's a bit of an extended thing of Nynaeve following Liandrin. And then still following her, and then follows her outside of the tower. And that's the scene.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, and at that point I'm like, all right. We go to Perrin. They come to a village now, which has strange fish. And then they go inside the village, and Elias will sleep out. Riveting stuff, as you can tell. That's that scene. The next scene is Moiraine talking with Verin. And Verin reveals that she knows who the dragon is. She hasn't met Rand at all. I don't know how she pieced it together. In the books, Verin figures it out because she actually sees Rand, and then she sees Rand interacting with the Amelin and Moiraine, and she's like, and there's logic to piece it together. How the heck she figured it out here? She just plucked it out of thin air. She's like, oh yeah, the boys are the people that you got from Hemsfield. One of them the dragon, isn't it? Yeah, okay, sure. Where'd you get that from?
And then she talks about, we can go to the tower and find the prophecies that state this, and this. I'm like, why would you go there to find them when you've just rehearsed them back?
Exactly.
When nobody previously has mentioned a single one of these prophecies.
I noticed that as well. She literally mentions the prophecies that she wants to find by stating what those prophecies are, showing that she already knows what the prophecies are. She doesn't need to look them up. So great writing, And so that's a whole scene. Lasts a while. We go to the jerk that Rand doesn't like. There he is. And Rand is stalking him for some reason. So much so that Rand actually jumps him and starts to beat the living heck out of him. Like, he was a jerk.
And so he follows and then beats senseless a bully.
And then accidentally channels and almost kills him. And he's like, no, I didn't mean to go that far. And so this is him like, no, stop channeling, whoops. And then the guy's basically burnt to a crisp on the, cusp of death. So Rand just wanted to beat him up a little bit, to remove him from the position, to get the job that he wants and everything like that. I feel that's out of character for Rand. I don't think it would be so brutal. And they try to justify it because this guy's a jerk. He's mean, and therefore it's perfectly okay for him to get physically assaulted and beaten to an inch of his life. It's like, I don't think that. I don't think Rand would think that. What are your thoughts, my dear?
No, I thought it was way beyond what Rand would do. Mm-hmm. All the guy has done so far is act a bit like a jerk. He startled a guy that's not going to remember he was startled tomorrow because he obviously doesn't remember from day to day. Mm-hmm. And he's just a bit of a meanie, really.
Yeah.
And then Rand stalks him, beats him to a pulp, and only stops because he starts wielding the power.
And if they really wanted this character to be removed in some way, they could have easily come up with something more creative. If they wanted to force a confrontation, he's a jerk. He's the type of character that might pick a fight with Rand.
Yes.
And so, felt too far and out of character. So he comes back, and then we met with Selene again, and all the same feelings about Selene come to the surface again. Look, she's staying with him in a hovel, basically, where Selene in the books is constantly trying to urge him to greatness. If you, get the Horn of Valir and sound it yourself and claim all this glory. There's none of that here. Did she at one point encourage him to greatness?
Nope, not a single time.
I didn't pick up on a single thing. And that's been her, not only is it that her main interaction with Rand, it's her main interaction with Perrin and the other guys as well. She is constantly trying to tempt them into power and glory.
Because that's all she's worried about. She thinks that must be everybody else's motivations. It works for me. Come on, guys. I can help you get there.
But no, and then we feel they're already in a relationship. Rand starts to choke her, and then, "No, I think I will kiss you," and then they basically start to get it on. And again, I hate
very
this.
aggressively.
Yeah, very aggressively. I hate this about Rand. I hate what they did with the Emmonsfield, is that they're sexually mature. In the books, they were naive. That was really charming about them, and you get to see their progression into relationships and as they grow up. It was really, really good. In this, he's just sleeping around with this woman that we don't know anything about her. What in their relationship brought them to this point? They don't show us in the show. So that's frustrating and annoying. This scene here was one of the other good scenes of this episode, and it's a scene with Elayne. And again, there's a reason why she's my favorite character so far, is that all the furniture, she moved into her thing. She's in trouble now. She had no right to do it in. And so Shiriam wants to find out who let her sneak in all this furniture. Elayne won't give it up, and she says, "Punish me instead." Look at that, a self-sacrificing, characteristic action that's protecting someone who is helping her out. And there was a good line. It's like, well, you're going to be punished, every morning for a month. And her line was just matter-of-factly, "Yep, do you want me in the morning or the afternoon?"
No, she was like, you'll come every morning for 3 months. And she's like, okay, would you like me before or after breakfast?
Yep. It was a good character. Like, it built a character. It's not like she's got a sense of nobility. She's willing to face punishment. And like, well, there we go. A half-decent, enjoyable character. She's the only one. We come back to Nynaeve, and Nynaeve followed Liandrin. And it turns out that man that Liandrin meets, that Moiraine said she knew in season 1, is her son. Like she said, she eventually starts to call this my beautiful boy, and so that's really implying that this is her child. And she mentioned that Aes Sedai can live for heaps of years. Like, this is a very humanizing scene for Liandrin. Like, Liandrin's a very inhumane person, and so
she's not supposed to have any redeeming qualities.
Yes. They are giving a lot of time for Liandrin's arc here when they didn't. This is intentional. To achieve what Liandrin was in the book, she barely interacts with the girls and just make her snooty and mean and aggressive. And then there's a pivotal thing that she does, and she does that pivotal thing. She calls the girls and does the thing. It wouldn't have been hard, but they've given her a lot of time and attention. So they are intentionally changing her character. I don't know for what, but it seems like it's to combine her with Elayne's arc. I'm not sure. I'll have to see how they execute it. It means, Liandrin can't do something important that she does later on. And in terms of the scene, I think the scene mostly works all right with... this is a part where Nynaeve can actually share she's a wisdom. She knows, like, this person needs these treatments. She freaks out and tells her to get lost. A very humanizing scene. And then she shows deep compassion for this person. And again, like Liandrin showing compassion for a man. It's like, this is really out of character for her. So this isn't Liandrin. Oh, look, Mat meets Min. This is not Min, by the way. It doesn't look like... the casting for Min is just awful.
And so they're in adjoining cell rooms, locked away.
There is the not Min. And then she joins him in the room and they have a drink. And it's just... like, Min comes off better in this episode than she did in season 1. Like, she has a bit more personality. And even Mat has a little bit more personality
in this scene than previously, yes.
And so, like... there's a small improvement, but they do not come off like the characters in the book still. Back to Moiraine, and again, this is where things are starting to drag again. They're talking, and Moiraine basically sends...
Not yet.
No,
so
they talk about how they met.
Yeah, they just talk about how they met, really. So that's about all you get from this one. Min sees a vision of the future. Vision. She's looking at Mat as she's about to go back to her little cell and sees a vision of Mat stabbing Rand. Killing him. So Min's visions were never contradicted in the books. They were always right. They would always happen.
Comes true. Most of the time, she doesn't... they're not doing Min right. She actually never really saw people playing out actions. She saw symbols that sometimes she understood and sometimes she didn't. Most of the time she doesn't. She just like, I see you holding a hammer and balancing a falcon and a hawk.
I see dice. I see a wolf. I see one eye. I see just and random things. And
rarely, but it does happen, but very rarely she's like, you're going to die in battle. And she actually knows what's going to happen. She does, but that's the book. They've changed it for the show. You didn't need to. It's another one of those pointless changes. And if they're going to play out, if they're going to be true to the books, they know Matt's not going to kill Rand, and so this means her visions aren't real, or it's going to be they'll try and do a bait and switch where he'll have to stab him for some reason to save his life or something, and he won't die from it or some bullcrap.
He'll get healed or something ridiculous. Yeah.
Rand and Selene lying in bed,
and they're chatting, and she's saying, you remind me of a man that I loved. And I can imagine that you're him. Do you think of somebody when we're together? And he's like, somebody I want to forget. She would be furious that he was thinking of another woman when they were together.
Like, Selene, when she finds out that Rand is interested in other people, she goes nuts. Another scene between Egwene and Elayne.
Which I thought was very well done for her character because Elayne in the books has a dirty mouth. She will swear like a sailor.
Not at the beginning of the books, later though, but yeah.
Oh, it sneaks in every now and again gradually. But she tries to learn swear words. And so here she's making her own moonshine from weaves that she's just taught herself.
Yeah. And she mentions like she likes to tinker with things or anything, something like that.
Yes.
That actually comes out later in the book. She has a gift, a certain type of gift that's important.
And so
that is
this
related
worked
to
well.
that. Yeah. Like a lot of the scenes with Elayne work well. She's like, it's easy, my favorite character.
And she told Egwene to basically stop being jealous of your friend.
Yes. You know, jealousy does not look good on you. And so, like, one of the reasons why I like her as well, she's calling out the crappy attitude of the other characters, which have been blatantly beating us over the head for an entire season. And finally a character comes along and is like, you're a bit of a cow. She doesn't say that, but she just says, you're jealous. It's ugly. Stop being jealous. It's like, oh, wow, someone calling out the jerks. Good.
She just needs to meet everybody else now and call them all out.
Exactly. The next scene is Moiraine telling Lan to go away. This is part of the broken reality that I have to deal with in the book because Moiraine is stilled, so the water bond is broken, and even then it was not necessary though. Like, why is she really sending him away? Moiraine, you need him. Like, literally, he saved your life. And then she's purposely being mean to try and send him away. That stupid trope is like, I need you to go away, so I'm going to be mean to you. And look, even Rand does that in the book, but he, you know, I don't like that trope. So it even happens in the book, but Rand learns his mistake. And Moiraine is doing that here because she says, you failed and I would have died if it wasn't for you. Like, no. Sorry, like, if it wasn't for the other Aes Sedai, I would have died. You cow, you still would have died if it wasn't for Lan. He saved your life first, earlier, and they would have totally killed you before the other Aes Sedai came and saved both your lives after. And so that was bloody annoying.
Yeah, she was just horrible in this scene. Yeah. She was just cruel and mean, and he would have just ignored it and followed her anyway.
Yes, and we do not know why she's sending him away. It seems really stupid, especially from what happened at the end of the last episode where she tried to go off on her own and nearly died. Because she was alone.
Within the first few minutes of taking herself by herself.
Why are you doing this, woman?
For a smart woman, she's not very smart.
No, it's not at all. And so frustrating and annoying. And then she eventually leaves. And this is all, they kind of reveal that she can lie now. He says, like, were we ever equals or were you ever, and, you know, you're an Aes Sedai, you can't lie. Thanks for pointing it out. She can lie, and this is her realizing she can.
Because she's like, we were never equals.
We were never equals, and she says something really cowish and mean. And look, I know she's posing, yet still, even if she's posing, the question is, why is she getting rid of Lan? It's really dumb. It is not making her come off, you know, clever and good. We cut to Perrin, and they're under attack. They get under attack, and it's the Seanchan. And I was hoping that Perrin might actually be able to do something here. At most, he picks up a stick and starts to wail on people. I was like, is this where we'll get his axe? Will he finally get his axe, his half-moon axe? It's like, no. The people that really do the damage is Uno and Inktar, and that's cool. They should be competent fighters as well. We see Loyal, you know, being held and trying to get free.
So it takes several men to try to contain him, and that's
loyal.
about it.
I hate looking at him. Because it's not loyal. Don't try and tell me that is loyal. It's just awful. But look, there's some cool moments of Loyal showing crazy Ogier strength and just tossing people. But Perrin doesn't really get to do much. We get to see, like I said, Uno and the guys, but then they get blasted away by Damani.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up. You don't really get to see what happens. They're basically... The Seanchan arrive. Dum dum dum. What will happen? Okay. We see Suroth, and it's weird. Suroth has the Forsaken standing right next to him. Like, she would be crapping her stacks. Everyone should be so afraid of this guy. So we don't know what his game is.
But in this fight scene with Perrin,
yeah,
he's repeatedly punching people with helmets, and he punches them in the face.
Yes, the Seanchan have full armored helmets, and Perrin thinks, this is a good idea, I'll punch him in the
and
helmets.
You hear a ding. They even do sound effects. You're like, why are they dropping? He should be the one shaking his hand going, that was dumb.
Yep, it's underwhelming. And then the final scene of the episode is Rand getting into the position of the guy that he nearly killed, nearly murdered, to meet Logain.
And says, I think we're going to have a lot in common.
That's the end of the episode.
So that was jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Very little was achieved. And look, even though there was some progress and there was some, not actually enjoyable moments with Elayne, the fundamental problem is the same problem that I'd mentioned at the beginning of this. What are the characters' motivations? Why is Moiraine doing what she's doing? Okay, there's no sense of urgency or investment, and it's really boring. And the show is an insult to the source material as usual. Anything else to add, my dear?
No, that pretty much sums it up.
We still have episode 3 to come. We'll be working on it. It's a bit tricky to do these reviews while we're on the move, so episode 3 might be a little bit later. We'll do our best. Hope to see you there. And as always, stay on watch.